Why should we care for the environment? Is this even a Catholic question? Is there a difference between a Catholic environmentalist and a secular one? Is it enough that we just all take out the recycling once a week? What about subduing and dominating the earth? What does it mean to be a steward of the planet? These are some of the questions that we'll be asking today, but we begin, as we often do, on the streets with your perspective.
Of course. Why? Because it's all we have. If we lose it, we're gone. We are the environment.
I think it should. Just to not worry about themselves and for future generations, for caring about it now.
If we don't have the environment, everything else is going to go to waste, everything else is going to deteriorate, and then we won't have anything, you know, beautiful to live with or look at.
Canada has so many natural resources, and it's important to preserve those for the future of the planet.
If we don't care about the environment, then we're destroying ourselves.
Well, the environment is life, and as life we have to continue to go on and on. We can't go the way we are right now because we're just self-destructing, but if we make the important green ideas that are coming forward now and the new technologies of the future, I think that we'd be better off.
In the long run, most of the things that we rely on is the environment. So like plants, trees and stuff like that, we're dependent in some way on them. So if we do put them first, then you're all, like, in the long run, you're benefiting from it.
Look at the city. The city's changed. You know, seasons are not what they were. You know, when I was growing up in the city, there were distinct seasons, and it seems to have gone away.
Most people agree that we should care for the planet. We're bombarded from all sides with different reasons the earth is sacred, or we need to ensure a safe place for the future generations. But is there a Catholic reason for doing so? And to help us figure that out, we're now joined by an environmentalist, but she's also a Franciscan Sister of the Eucharist. Sister Damien-Marie Savino is the head of the Environmental Sciences program at the University of St. Thomas in Houston. Sister Damien-Marie, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Pedro.
So let me ask you the question. Should we care for the environment, or why should we care for the environment?
Well, we have a biblical mandate, I think, to care for the environment. In Genesis, we are told that all creation is good and that we are meant to be stewards of that creation. So as humans, we're the only creature on earth that can be a steward.
So, okay, so there's two things there. So what does it mean that creation is good? Would that not mean that we should leave it be and take care of it and not use it the way we do?
I would say, well, and that's a question that does come up many times in discussions with persons about the whole environmental question. I would say there's an instrumental good in creation and there's an intrinsic good, okay. And both of those need to be emphasized.
What do you mean by intrinsic good?
Well, an intrinsic good would be a certain just goodness, that creation is good because it was created by God. Yeah. And so it's just good in itself. The instrumental good is that it's good also for us. We need to eat, we need to have fuel. And
so it doesn't mean that we should not touch creation, that we should never cut down a tree?
No, it doesn't at all. And again, sometimes this does get confused in the secular, I think in the secular approach, but somehow we have to get a balance between respecting the intrinsic good of creation and using creation for our own sustenance.
Okay, so then, and then you made the connection between being stewards. What does it mean to be a steward of the earth?
Well, a steward is someone who takes good care of what's been entrusted to him or her. And so as stewards of creation, we want to take good care of what's been given to us, recognizing that it's a gift with an intrinsic goodness to it, but also recognizing that it's a gift that's been given to us. And with a gift, you always want to respond. When someone gives you a gift, you want to respond with a thank you, with a sense of gratitude. So stewardship, I think, also includes that sense of gratitude.
So that, I think, makes sense for someone who is a believer in creation or a believer in the Bible. But like, if you were having this conversation with a non-Christian,
sure,
how would you help them understand that balance between intrinsic and instrumental good and maybe stewardship?
Well, I think actually this is a great entrance point for persons maybe who aren't believers. And I even think that Pope Benedict has been doing some of his teachings in relation to that, because all of us, whether we are Christian or not, have a sense of awe, I think, a native sense of awe when we're in creation.
Okay.
We see the beauty and the complexity. So even without a sense of God or a faith in God, we could get a feeling of this incredible complexity around us and incredible beauty. So that's an entrance point, I think.
So do you think that then that sense of awe and wonder is something that's intrinsic in all human? But what if I have? I mean, I might know someone who says, "Well, no, I don't have that sense." I think they do, but is that something that's intrinsic in all human beings, that we have it?
I think it is. Now, not every person would agree. I mean, because I'm trained as an environmental engineer, and I know many scientists, and there are some scientists who would say, have a much more materialist sense of creation, and would say that this is just random, a result of random patternings and such. So that sense of awe might be obscured in some people, but you will also meet many scientists who maybe aren't Christian who have that tremendous sense of awe, and many environmentalists too.
So even for a scientist, the curiosity that comes with being a scientist, that to want to know, would you say that that's part of that sense of wonder?
Yes, yes, and I think that's part of the uniqueness of us being human, that we have that sense of awe. You know, your dog can have a sense of excitement about things, but I don't think he's going to have a sense of awe at the sunset. You know, so this is something where we're uniquely human, I would say. That sense of awe and wonder is part of our unique humanity.
Do you think that there's some connection there? Because you mentioned Thanksgiving and gratitude. Because I'm thinking about looking at that sunset or looking at that mountain and having a sense of, almost a sense of being elevated.
Yes. Yes, I remember the first time I ever saw the Northern Lights. I was by myself, and I was very far north up in Scandinavia. And the whole night sky was just alive, and all I could do was to have a sense of deep gratitude that there has to be something or someone behind all of this.
Because it's beautiful, because it inspires awe, or because it's so perfectly ordered, because of all of the above?
I think all of the above in one sense. It's so much huger. I mean, I had a sense of real smallness, that how, you know, I was so small on the face of this sky that was just gorgeous, dancing with light. So there was that, and a sense of the incredible beauty. I think also, maybe it wasn't so conscious as this, but a feeling like anything we humans can design. And as an environmental engineer, I have a sense of that, but none of it can match the design that's in nature.
That is
we
perfect,
mimic it. You know, we mimic it, we try to mimic it, but we never can match or excel it. I think most people would agree.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a combination of all of those.
So to go from that moment of wonder, looking at the Northern Lights, that it feels like I'm being elevated, that I feel so small, to using creation for my benefit, to feed me or to clothe me, where do you find that balance? I guess I'm thinking about abuse, really. How do we know when it's abuse and when it's just enjoyment, or can it be both?
Yeah, and that's a tricky question. I think probably it would vary depending on each situation, but there is a way in which we can use creation in a way that actually makes something more beautiful. You know, how we care for our land, perhaps.
Okay.
You know, so that stewarding, say, of gardening, vegetable gardens and flower gardens, and we could actually make our piece of land for which we're responsible more beautiful by our stewarding of it, by how we cultivate it. And if we did more of that on a local level, I think that would really help to bridge this gap between sort of the utilitarian approach and the instrumental good and abuse.
What do you tell people that maybe don't quite understand how you can bring together your Catholicism, being a sister, and your environmentalism, and how can those two come together?
Okay. Well, there's a number of levels that we could talk about this. I think, first of all, we could say on a very basic level, as a Catholic, I do not believe that I am worshiping like God in the tree.
Right.
The tree is pointing me to something beyond itself, and that is, for me, this God, the creator. So a creator who's, you know, in one sense, present in his creation or immanent to his creation, but yet transcendent to it. So as opposed to some secular environmentalists might think that God is actually in that tree and we're worshiping that tree. So there's a very distinct difference there.
Right.
Then the other thing, and this gets into a little more radical ends of how you might view a Catholic approach to the environment, is that I feel strongly, and I'm in union with the Pope on this and many others, that it's a union of natural ecology and human ecology.
Yeah,
so
okay.
those two have to come together. So care for human life and care for the environment should be all part of one morality.
So you can't take one over the other necessarily.
No, and they should be in union. So the hard part of this teaching, perhaps for some people, would be I am very pro-life as a Franciscan sister of the Eucharist, and I'm also pro-creation. And I feel those two come together, and that's what I hear Pope Benedict saying to us loud and clear.
Right. Well, we're going to take a little break, but it's a short break. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation. And in particular, we're going to learn why sometimes Pope Benedict is referred to as the Green Pope. So stay tuned.
Let us know your perspective. Email us at perspectives@saltandlighttv.org or reach us by mail, Perspectives at Salt and Light Television, 114 Richmond Street East, Toronto, Ontario, M5C 1P1, or call us toll-free at 1-888-302-7181. Let your perspective be heard.
Most High, all-powerful good Lord, all praise is yours, all glory, all honor, and all blessing. To you alone, Most High, do they belong. No mortal lips are worthy to pronounce your name. All praise be yours, my Lord, through all you have made. And first, my Lord, brother sun, who brings the day, and through whom you give us light. How beautiful is he, how radiant in all his splendor. Of you, Most High, he bears the likeness. All praise be yours, my Lord, through Sister Moon and the stars. In the heavens you have made them, bright and precious and fair. All praise be yours, my Lord, through brothers wind and air, and fair and stormy all the weather's moods, by which you cherish all that you have made. All praise be yours, my Lord, through Sister Water, so useful, humble, precious, and pure. All praise be yours, my Lord, through Brother Fire, through whom you brighten up the night. How beautiful is he, how cheerful, full of power and strength. All praise be yours, my Lord, through our sister, Mother Earth, who sustains us and governs us and produces various fruits with colored flowers and herbs. All praise be yours, my Lord, through those who grant pardon for love of you, through those who endure sickness and trial. Happy are those who endure in peace. By you, Most High, they will be crowned. All praise be yours, my Lord, through Sister Death, from whose embrace no mortal can escape. Woe to those who die in mortal sin. Happy those she finds doing your will. The second death can do them no harm. Praise and bless my Lord, and give him thanks, and serve him with great humility.
That was the beautiful Canticle of Creation written by St. Francis. Now, Sister Damien-Marie, you are a Franciscan sister of the Eucharist. Is there a specific view of the environment that is rooted in that Franciscan tradition?
Yes, I think so, and I think that's why St. Francis was named the patron saint of ecology by Pope John Paul II.
Right.
And there is very much so, as you could hear in that beautiful canticle, that it's always creation always pointing beyond itself to a creator. And that sense that when St. Francis was so holy toward the end of his life that, you know, there are the legends that the birds came and sat on him, that he tamed the wolf. And I don't think it's so far-fetched to really think of that when we become integrally holy, we would have that kind of closeness with the rest of the created world.
I mean, I don't know if it's fair to say that there is an official Catholic teaching towards the environment, but maybe there is, and maybe it's coming closer and closer to there being one. But would you say that that is very much rooted in that Franciscan tradition, St. Bonaventure or other?
Yeah, good question. I would say I teach a theology of creation class at University of St. Thomas, and in researching for that class, you know, we have an even longer tradition going back to the patristic fathers and of course going back to the scriptures.
Okay.
So, and in the early centuries of the church, the patristic fathers focused a great deal on what creation was, theologically speaking, and how it related to the idea of God the creator and of God being one God as opposed to many gods like in the pagan understanding, and of God as being a loving God who created a good creation as opposed to a creation that came out of blood and gore as in many of the, say, the Babylonian creation myths.
Right.
Now, when St. Francis came along, but even before him we had St. Benedict, who had lived a life very close, a monastic life very close to creation. And then St. Francis, and after him, St. Bonaventure, who put words to what St. Francis lived.
Right.
So the Franciscan tradition really picked up, but it's in continuity with a longer tradition.
Okay, okay. And now, earlier you also mentioned that Pope Benedict, and it's interesting that you now mentioned St. Benedict, so I wonder if there's a connection there, that Pope Benedict has been one of the, even before he was Pope, as a theologian, has been quite outspoken about some of these topics, particularly in that balance between the human and the natural ecology. Has there been anything else from Pope Benedict that has been, I guess, instrumental for you or meaningful to you?
Well, certainly the natural and human ecology is the really key thing that I have picked up from Pope Benedict. But his writings, I think also his writings to youth, in which he encourages them to learn to read the language of creation. And he uses the image of the grammar of creation, which again, St. Augustine would have used, St. Bonaventure used it, so Pope Benedict is going back to that tradition.
Can you explain that a little bit? What does he mean by the grammar of creation?
Well, a couple of things. Grammar is a logical structure that has rules and laws that we have to learn in order to speak a language correctly. So the grammar of creation would imply that there are rules and laws in that creation. It's an ordered creation. It's not chaotic. It's not random. There's an order. And in the Catholic tradition, we would say that is an order that was put there by God. There's a design that's greater, and this design there is pointing to the master designer.
Right.
And then that design is always speaking to us, and Pope Benedict has said this in his addresses, that we need to learn the language of creation. Creation is speaking to us, and if we don't learn that language, then creation will rebel. And so creation is depending upon us to learn that language. And so that's what I try to train my students who are studying environmental science. It's, yes, about the science, but the science is really, in essence, learning that grammar of creation.
Interesting. So would you say that that's, I mean, we refer to Pope Benedict as the Green Pope. I've heard people say that.
Yes.
Is that why? Because he's been more outspoken, or have there been other things that he's done or books that he's written?
Yes, he has. He has a book of homilies, actually, that he wrote back in the 80s before he was Pope, but in Germany.
Right.
And it's called In the Beginning, a Catholic understanding of the creation of the story of creation and the fall, excuse me.
Right.
And there he had a series of homilies where he discussed from the scripture what creation really is. He's also lived this in his pontificate. I mean, putting solar panels on the Paul VI audience hall.
That's true.
And he's done a whole number of things where he's actually kind of living what he's talking about. But then I think where he's really unique is in putting that natural and human ecology together. So, and I wish, this is where I think there's a great need in stewardship to steward human life along with the non-human life.
Well, I want to ask you a little bit about that, because I can think of very practical examples, let's say with the oil sands in Alberta, where do we close all that down and then we end up with thousands of people who are unemployed? Or do we, so is that kind of the balance that we're talking about in terms of the natural ecology and the human ecology? Is not just, we're not just talking about abortion here.
Yes.
I mean, it's very much a social justice thing as well, no?
Yes, I would say, actually, in my work on this, in reading Pope Benedict, I see three themes. One of them would be kind of the social justice, environmental justice, Also, and energy questions are really big. When the Pope brings up this question of natural and human ecology in relation to social justice, he brings up energy.
Okay.
So those, and they're tricky questions. We have to have energy to live, but extracting that energy has impacts, so we need to think carefully about that.
Right.
So that is one area, the social justice. Then there's the pro-life, pro-environment connection.
Right.
And then here's another even hotter topic that the Pope has now more recently been talking about, but the idea that the natural law in creation speaks of man and woman as being the foundational unit for family. And he's talking about that as another aspect of human ecology. So he's getting wider and wider in the way that he's approaching this whole sense of theology of creation and a natural and human ecology coming together.
So would you say then that the Catholic approach, if I can say that, is a more complete or holistic approach in that it's not just looking at the environment, looking at nature or looking at the animals, but looking at social justice, pro-life,
pro-family,
pro-family, and all these things that if there was a Catholic teaching on the environment, it would be the same as the Catholic teaching on social justice or the Catholic teaching on life and family issues?
Yes, I would say that the Catholic teaching is kind of a yes and maybe that's not perceived so much in the secular media as such, but it's a yes to environmental concerns, because it's absolutely central how we care for this created world, and how we care for the created world reflects something of our inner selves. But it's a yes and, though, also to human life, because very often in a secular approach, the natural, say, people say, well, the eagle's egg is more important than the human fetus or whatever. But in Catholic teaching, we would say, no, they're both important. And we would actually go a little farther and say, well, actually, human life, if you had to choose between the two, you really should choose human life. Right? But that doesn't mean you ignore the eagle's egg either. So I think the Catholic approach is trying to be more comprehensive.
Yeah, okay. So then maybe just in conclusion, after having the whole conversation, if I can ask you that first question again, so why should we care for the environment?
I would say that we should care for the environment because we are absolutely entrusted with this created world, and we are not living into the fullness of our humanity if we are not caring for creation, but caring in this larger sense of human life, non-human life in one unity, and human life as having a very distinct role within that whole drama of creation.
I like that. Thank you. We're going to conclude our conversation by reflecting on God's Word. We always leave the last word to the one who is the Word.
Good.
And so this is a passage from the book of Genesis, chapter 1, verses 28 and 29. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, let us make humankind in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. So God created humankind in his image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. So if you'd like to share a little reflection on that, sister.
Very beautiful scriptural passage, and certainly speaks more than I could speak. But in terms of what I could possibly reflect upon in relation to it, it seems to encompass what we've just talked about. And I'm struck by the male and female, he created them, the significance of that. But also, of course, we are created in the image and likeness of God, and that means that we are entrusted with creation in a very particular way. And yet at the same time, the way that we enter into that relationship with God and with creation is to recognize ourselves too as creatures. So we return all of creation back to the Father in a way, hopefully, that is more fertile, more beautiful than when we received it.
Well, thank you very much, sister. I know you and I have spent a lot of time talking about a lot of these same issues and questions, so it's wonderful that we're able to share it with our viewers. So thank you for being with us here today.
Thank you, Pedro.
Sharing what you do and your passion. We've been speaking with Sister Damien-Marie Savino. She's a Franciscan Sister of the Eucharist, and she's also the head of the Environmental Science and Studies Department at the University of St. Thomas in Houston. If you missed any portion of this program or to watch any of our Perspectives Weekly programs, visit us at saltandlighttv.org/perspectives. That's where we post all our shows. You can watch all of them there. And also, for the question of the week, visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/saltandlighttv. Remember, we cannot do this show without your perspective. That's all for tonight, and have a great week.